Marco Vicenzino is a specialist in international affairs, and he joins me now. Marco, good to see you again. So, this effect of tripling border controls around the Mediterranean Sea, what effect do you think it will have?
Obviously, whether people are determined to come, no matter what, the droves and droves of people coming will be arriving. The issue is, what's the long-term policy? Although there's been an increase in the amount of money being spent, the question is how the migration policy of Europe hasn't changed. So we have a short-term measure, very important one, to save lives, but how to address that in the long run, that still remains a major question, subject to debate.
When it comes to a military sort of mandate, essentially, to stop these vessels from departing from Libya and getting rid of them before they can leave with all these people on them, is that an effective policy, do you think? Would it be a good idea to utilise that kind of approach?
Three issues. One is going to be reliable intelligence. Secondly, there's also the issue of sovereignty in Libya. And third is legality. If we start with the legality issues, we have to go to the United Nations Security Council to get the mandate. And Russia sits on the Security Council, and Russia may be reluctant to have another policing action done for Libya. Secondly is also, like I said, is the intelligence. You need reliable intelligence to pinpoint exactly where these boats are. Does that intelligence exist? It's somewhat questionable. And the other issue is sovereignty. Libya is divided in two. The recognized government, which sits in Tobruk, and in the west, where all the migrants are arriving from, is the Islamist-leaning National Salvation Government. And today they made it clear that they will not participate or allow this action to take place where they control, unless there's some form of official recognition to them, giving them legitimacy. So that's another key issue also that's involved.
When it comes to how the world sees what's going on in the Mediterranean at the moment, is it more of a humanitarian issue, or is it a political issue now that we've seen the EU leaders meeting in Brussels?
Both. And humanitarian in the sense that there's people. It's an international humanitarian crisis. We've had over 1,500 deaths in just a matter of a few weeks. Political in the sense that those who are sitting, the 28 member states who are sitting in Brussels, the heads of state, also have political realities and considerations determined domestically. They have their own constituents. Many of them are in countries of deep economic crisis, and their constituents and their citizens also have needs, and they have to strike a balance between the two, and that's not an easy task.
Absolutely. You touched on it just now as well. When it comes to sort of patrolling European countries' borders, European leaders, particularly from the right-leaning parties, will not be happy to see migrants flooding into their country. How can they essentially police who comes in and where they go?
Well, the reality is that according to legislation in Europe, wherever the refugees arrive, whether it's Greece, Spain and Italy, those countries have to host them. It's their responsibility. So technically other countries throughout Europe are not really obligated to accept them. But the problem is that when you have other countries like Germany and Sweden, for example, have been very generous in terms of refugees from the Syrian war. The reality is that those three countries mentioned, Spain, Italy, Greece, are the countries that are suffering most during this deep economic crisis. And if it's a union of European states, their interests also have to be taken into consideration. There has to be some form of burden sharing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When it comes to the burden sharing and who foots the bill, essentially,
yeah.
Will it matter who contributes more? The UK are saying that they've got the highest in terms of proportion for their defence budget. Would they be expected to contribute more than other European countries?
In terms of giving resources to the search and rescue mission, I don't think that's much of an issue. The UK today will be sending vessels, will be sending warships. They'll also have Germany has offered to send the warships. The big question is when they are saved, searching, and you save them, you take them into Europe, and who is actually going to resettlement? So resettlement is probably the key, most controversial issue in this entire humanitarian crisis.
Marco Vicenzino, thank you very much indeed for that update.